Bread is often described today as a healthy staple, especially when it carries the label whole wheat. Yet in everyday medical testing, this same bread can raise blood sugar to levels that are normally associated with pure carbohydrates. Readings above 160 after a single meal are not unusual. These numbers are not debated. They are routinely measured. What makes this difficult to ignore is the historical comparison. Bread is not a modern food. For centuries, it was eaten daily across Europe. It was not occasional, and it was not optional. In many regions, bread provided most of the daily calories for adults and children alike. Monasteries recorded grain intake carefully. Cities regulated bread production because survival depended on it. And yet, when historians examine pre-industrial medical texts, hospital records and dietary accounts, they do not find a disease that resembles modern diabetes. Chronic blood sugar failure does not appear as a defined condition. This absence is striking, not because medieval medicine was advanced, but because the diet was so heavily centered on bread. The ingredient itself has not changed in a way that explains this difference. Wheat is still wheat. Human digestion has not been redesigned. What has changed is the process that turns grain into bread. Somewhere between medieval ovens and modern factories, bread stopped behaving like a stable food and started acting like a fast carbohydrate. That change did not happen suddenly. It happened step by step as bread shifted from a biological system to an industrial product. The bread of the medieval world was not a finished product taken off a shelf. It was a process that began months earlier in the field. Grain was grown in mineral-rich soils, harvested by hand, and stored in whole form. Nothing about this system was fast. Losses mattered, spoilage mattered, and hunger was a constant pressure. Because of that, bread was designed to last in the body, not just on a table. When grain was milled, it was crushed slowly between stones. This did not produce a uniform white powder. It created a coarse flour where bran, germ, and starch remained physically connected. The structure of the grain was damaged just enough to make it usable, but not enough to make it biologically aggressive. This mattered because digestion responds not only to ingredients, but to structure. Intact grain breaks down slowly. Finely powdered grain does not. Dough was then mixed with water and left alone. Fermentation was not rushed because it could not be rushed. Yeast and bacteria worked at the pace allowed by temperature and time. In many regions, this meant a full day or more before baking. During this period, acids formed naturally. Enzymes broke down complex starches. Minerals bound to the grain became more available. By the time bread entered the oven, much of the biological work was already done. The goal of this bread was not softness or sweetness, it was stability. Bread needed to support long hours of physical labor. It needed to keep hunger controlled when food was scarce. People judged bread by how it held them through the day, not by how quickly it delivered energy. If bread caused weakness or discomfort, the method was changed. Survival did not allow for repeated failure. This system was shaped by constraint, but it produced a form of intelligence. Without knowing the language of metabolism or glycemic response, medieval bakers worked toward outcomes that mattered: steady strength, manageable hunger, and predictable digestion. Bread was not isolated from the body. It was adjusted until the body tolerated it well. Seen this way, medieval bread was not simple food. It was an applied system, refined over generations. Each step, from milling to fermentation to baking, limited how quickly starch could turn into sugar in the bloodstream. This was not theory, it was practice, tested daily by people who depended on bread to function. That context is essential. It shows that bread once behaved very differently, not because people were healthier or wiser, but because the system that produced bread was built around human biology rather than industrial efficiency. Fermentation is often discussed today as a health trend, but in earlier societies it was simply a requirement of making bread work. Dough was not something that could be mixed and baked immediately. Once flour and water were combined, time became part of the process. During this time, microorganisms began to change the structure of the food in quiet but important ways. As fermentation progresses, enzymes naturally present in grain start breaking long starch chains into simpler forms. This does not make the bread sweeter. Instead, it changes how quickly those starches can be accessed during digestion. Proteins also begin to loosen and reorganize. Acids slowly build as bacteria produce organic byproducts. These acids matter, not for flavor alone, but for how the body responds after eating. A more acidic dough slows the action of digestive enzymes in the human gut. This means glucose enters the bloodstream more gradually. The rise in blood sugar is smoother, not sharp. This is not a guarantee of stable blood sugar, and it does not prevent disease by itself. It simply reduces the speed at which energy is released. Speed is the key difference. Fermentation also affects minerals locked inside grain. Wheat contains compounds that bind minerals like iron and magnesium, making them harder to absorb. Over time, fermentation reduces this binding. The result is bread that is not only easier to digest, but also more nutritionally available. Again, this happens without intention or theory. It happens because time allows biology to do its work. In medieval systems, fermentation lasted as long as conditions required. Cool temperatures slowed it down, warm kitchens sped it up, bakers adjusted by observation. Dough that rushed produced poor results. Dough given time behaved better. This was learned through repetition, not measurement. Modern bread follows a different logic. Fermentation is shortened to hours, sometimes minutes. Commercial yeast is added to force rapid rise. Acidity stays low. Enzymatic work remains incomplete. The dough looks finished, but biologically, it is not. When this bread is eaten, digestion must complete work that was once done before baking. The result is a faster conversion of starch into glucose. This does not mean fermentation is a cure or a solution. It simply shows that time was once treated as a functional ingredient. Medieval systems respected that constraint because they had no choice. Modern systems remove time to gain speed and consistency. The difference in blood sugar response is not mysterious. It follows directly from how much biological work happens before the bread reaches the body. When that work is shortened or skipped, the body absorbs the cost. Grinding is often treated as a neutral step, as if flour is simply wheat made smaller. In reality, the way grain is broken apart changes how the body experiences it. Structure matters. Digestion does not respond only to what something is made of, but to how it is physically arranged. In the medieval world, grain was milled slowly between stone surfaces. This process cracked the grain rather than pulverizing it. The result was uneven flour, with larger particles mixed with smaller ones. Bran, germ and starch were still connected in complex shapes. Nothing about this flour was uniform, and nothing about it behaved like refined powder. The grain resisted digestion. It took time to break down. Modern milling follows a different logic. Roller mills are designed to produce consistency at scale. Grain is stripped, separated, and ground into extremely fine particles. Even when bran is added back, and the flour is labelled, the physical structure has already been destroyed. What remains is nutritionally complete on paper, but biologically altered. Particle size changes how quickly enzymes can act. Fine flour exposes more surface area at once. Digestive enzymes move rapidly across it, breaking starch into glucose, with very little resistance. The body does not see this as slow food. It sees it as something closer to sugar. This is why two breads with similar ingredient lists can produce very different blood sugar responses. Medieval milling avoided this problem without understanding it scientifically. Stone grinding was inefficient by modern standards, but it preserved resistance. Flour behaved more like food and less like fuel. Digestion had to work gradually. Energy release followed the same pattern. This was not a design choice made for health. It was a result of limited tools and physical constraints. Modern systems removed those constraints. Uniformity improved. Shelf life improved. Baking became predictable, but something else changed as well. The body lost the friction it once had against starch digestion. Blood sugar rises faster when flour no longer slows the process. This is why the ingredient list alone is misleading. Wheat did not suddenly become harmful. What changed was the grain's internal architecture. The same material, reorganized, behaves differently inside the body. This is a systems problem, not a moral one. Understanding this shift helps explain why modern bread can feel heavier, sharper, and less stable, even when it carries familiar names. The bread did not lose nutrients, it lost structure, and structure is what once kept digestion steady. Industrial bread did not emerge because bakers forgot how to make good food. It emerged because the problem bread was meant to solve changed. In the medieval world, bread existed inside a local loop. Grain was grown nearby, milled nearby, baked nearby, and eaten soon after. Failure was visible and immediate. If bread caused weakness or did not satisfy hunger, the system adjusted. Industrial bread operates under different pressures. It must travel long distances. It must behave the same in every location. It must rise on schedule, bake on schedule, slice cleanly, and remain stable for days or weeks. These are not small constraints. They shape every decision in the process. To meet these demands, time is removed wherever possible. Fermentation is shortened. Flour is standardized. Additives are introduced to control texture and shelf life. None of this is done to harm the body. It is done to reduce uncertainty. A predictable product is easier to distribute than a biologically complex one. The result is bread that performs well inside a supply chain. It rises quickly. It looks uniform. It survives transport. It can be produced at scale with minimal variation. From an industrial perspective, this is success. From a biological perspective, it changes how bread behaves once eaten. When systems optimize for speed, digestion becomes an afterthought. The work once done by time, microbes and structure is transferred to the human body. Starch is converted more quickly. Glucose enters the bloodstream faster. Hunger returns sooner. None of this is intentional. It is a side effect of design priorities. This is why modern bread often feels less stable as food, even when it is labeled as healthy. The label describes ingredients. It does not describe the system that produced them. Two breads can share the same components and still act very differently inside the body because they were built for different environments. It is important to be precise here. Industrial bread is not a mistake. It solves real problems. It feeds large populations efficiently. It reduces waste. It allows cities to function. But it is optimized for logistics, not for long, slow digestion. Once this is understood, the comparison becomes clearer. Medieval bread was shaped by human limits and biological feedback. Industrial bread is shaped by mechanical limits and economic efficiency. Each system produces the outcomes it is designed for. The increase in blood sugar response is not a mystery or a failure of willpower. It follows logically from how the system was reoriented. When food is designed to move fast through machines, it often moves fast through the body as well. This shift does not require blame to explain it. It only requires attention to what the system is built to do and what it is no longer built to protect. Medieval bakers did not work with charts, measurements, or medical language. They worked with outcomes. Bread was eaten every day, often more than once. Its effects were visible in real time. If a loaf left people weak, bloated, or unable to work, the problem could not be ignored. There was no alternative system to hide behind. Because bread was central to survival, methods were shaped by constant feedback. Dough that fermented too quickly behaved poorly. Bread that spoiled hunger too soon was rejected. Grain that was milled too finely did not hold people through the day. These were not abstract observations. They affected labor, endurance, and survival. When something failed, it was changed. This created a slow but reliable form of knowledge. Methods that worked were repeated. Methods that caused problems disappeared. Over generations, this formed stable practices without theory. Bakers did not need to understand enzymes to see that longer fermentation produced better bread. They did not need metabolic terms to notice that coarse flour sustained energy longer than fine powder. This kind of feedback loop is different from modern nutrition science. It is less precise, but it is continuous. Modern systems rely on studies, averages, and delayed conclusions. Medieval systems relied on daily consequences. When the same food is eaten for decades, the body becomes the measuring instrument. This does not mean medieval bakers were wiser or healthier. It means their systems allowed less distance between cause and effect. There was no way to separate food production from bodily outcome. The result was a form of practical optimization, guided by survival rather than explanation. Understanding this helps explain why medieval bread functioned well. Without scientific language, knowledge was embedded in practice. The system corrected itself through use. When bread worked, it stayed. When it failed, it was replaced. Over centuries, this created a food that aligned closely with human digestion, even without formal understanding. That alignment was not accidental. It was earned through repetition, necessity, and time. The story of bread is not really about bread. It is about how systems are designed and what they are designed to serve. Medieval bread existed inside a human-scale loop. It responded to the limits of the body. Modern bread exists inside a logistical loop. It responds to the limits of machines, schedules, and distribution. Neither system is perfect. Medieval life was hard and uncertain. Modern systems solve problems that older societies could not, but some principles do not change. Digestion still follows the same biological rules. Structure, time, and processing still shape how food behaves inside the body. What has changed is not the grain or the person eating it. What has changed is the distance between making food and experiencing its effects. As that distance grows, consequences become harder to notice and easier to dismiss. This does not require nostalgia to understand. It only requires attention. When systems shift their priorities, outcomes shift with them. Bread simply makes this visible because it has been with us long enough to show the contrast. The past did not succeed because it was simple. It succeeded in certain areas because it was constrained, and some of those constraints quietly protected things we no longer desire.